The city hummed with the ceaseless rhythm of life, and in the heart of it all, Caroline Hayes sat behind the glass walls of her towering office building, staring at the skyline and feeling the emptiness that no deal or contract could fill. She was 35 and the youngest CEO in her company's history, and yet the victories that once made her pulse race now felt hollow. Her secretary knocked and left a message about another high-profile meeting, but Caroline barely registered it. Her thoughts wandered to the past, to the times when life felt simpler before the boardrooms and power lunches, before the endless emails and the relentless need to prove herself. She remembered the afternoons spent in the park watching children chase pigeons and the smell of warm cookies from her mother's kitchen. She tried to push those memories away because they were painful reminders of what she had lost. Her own mother had passed away when she was young, leaving a void that no one could fill, and though she had tried to build a fortress around herself, it was often lonely at the top. Later that day, Caroline was walking home through the narrow streets, lined with small shops and cafes, when she noticed a little girl sitting on a bench with a worn stuffed bunny clutched tightly to her chest. The girl looked up and smiled shyly, and Caroline felt an unusual tug at her heart. She approached cautiously and asked if she was all right, and the little girl nodded, but then in a small voice she said, "Can you be my mom for just one day?" Caroline froze, unsure if she had heard correctly. Her eyes were drawn to the delicate necklace around the girl's neck, a tiny locket shaped like a heart that seemed oddly familiar. Caroline knelt down and examined it closely, and then her breath caught in her throat because she recognized it immediately. It was the same locket her mother had always worn and given to Caroline when she was little. The resemblance was uncanny, and a shiver ran down her spine. The girl tilted her head and said, "I lost my mom, and I just want to be with someone who can hold me today." Caroline felt her chest tighten, and for the first time in years, she felt the pull of something deeper than ambition. She remembered the nights she had spent crying herself to sleep, wishing for just one hug and one voice telling her it would be okay. Now here was a child asking for the same thing, and the coincidence of the locket made it feel as though fate itself had delivered this moment. Caroline hesitated, because she was a CEO used to control and certainty, and yet the vulnerability of this little girl was disarming. The streets around them bustled with people going about their business, but Caroline felt a bubble of quiet around them, as if the world had paused and asked her to choose something more than herself. She reached out tentatively, and the girl slipped her small hand into hers, and the world seemed to shift. Caroline promised softly that she would stay with her for the day, and the little girl's eyes sparkled with relief and joy. Caroline felt a warmth she had not known since childhood, as they walked together down the street planning small adventures and laughing at trivial things. And for the first time, she allowed herself to just be present. The day unfolded like a dream, with Caroline and the little girl exploring the park, riding a carousel and feeding ducks at the pond. Caroline felt the heaviness of her corporate life lifting with every giggle, and every small hand holding hers tightly. They stopped at an ice cream stand, and the girl insisted that Caroline try the chocolate sprinkles, even though she rarely indulged in sweets. Caroline found herself laughing freely, forgetting about board meetings and shareholder reports. Her mind wandered to the story of the locket, and she realized that the girl must have lost her mother in some tragic way, and the resemblance had drawn her in. Caroline thought about her own childhood and how she had craved attention and affection, and how easily a small act of kindness had changed her world. She took the girl to a toy store and watched as she picked out a small figurine, choosing it with care, and then insisted Caroline pick one too, shared secrets as they walked down the streets with the sun slowly dipping behind the skyscrapers. Caroline felt a tenderness that she had buried deep inside her and a protective instinct she had never known she could feel. The girl told stories about her life in bits and pieces, her words simple yet profound. And Caroline realized how much the world could change when seen through the eyes of someone who trusted you completely. As the day wore on, Caroline suggested a stop at a small diner. She remembered from her childhood, and the girl sat quietly sipping her milkshake and drawing in the corner of the table with a crayon. Caroline watched her and felt a wave of love that was overwhelming and unfamiliar. She had always been a woman of logic and reason, yet here she was letting herself be guided by emotions she had long suppressed. They walked through a small bookstore, and Caroline noticed the girl staring at a shelf of storybooks. Her eyes widened when she saw a particular book, and she picked it up, clutching it to her chest as if it were a treasure. Caroline bought the book, and the girl hugged it, and then hugged Caroline, and Caroline felt the world narrow to this single moment of connection and warmth. The streets grew quieter, and Caroline knew the day was ending soon, but she did not want to let go of the feeling that had awakened in her. She realized that this encounter had reminded her of what mattered most, not contracts or success, but love connection, and the small acts that made life meaningful. As they sat on a bench waiting for the city lights to flicker on, the girl leaned against Caroline and whispered that she wished this day would never end. Caroline looked down at the locket and thought about her own mother and how she had once held her in her arms and reassured her that everything would be all right. She felt as though history was looping in a strange, beautiful way, giving her a chance to offer what she had longed for herself, and she made a silent promise to be there for this little girl as much as she could. Night fell, and the city lights twinkled, reflecting in Caroline's eyes, and the little girl yawned and rested her head on Caroline's shoulder as they walked back. To the small apartment she lived in temporarily for now, Caroline unlocked the door and stepped inside, allowing the girl to explore her new temporary home. She watched as the girl arranged her new book and figurine on a shelf and felt a deep sense of responsibility and joy intertwining within her. Caroline prepared a simple dinner and they ate together, laughing over small spills and silly stories. The girl asked about Caroline's life and she shared, selectively avoiding work details, but telling stories of her own childhood fears and joys. She realized how natural it felt to nurture someone else and how healing it was for herself. The evening grew quiet, and Caroline tucked the girl into a small makeshift bed on the sofa, and the girl clutched her locket tightly and whispered, "Thank you for being my mom." Caroline kissed her forehead and whispered that she would always be there. And as Caroline turned to leave, she paused and reflected on the strange turn of events that had brought them together. The locket was more than a coincidence. It was a bridge between past and present, a symbol of healing and connection that had led her to rediscover parts of herself she had nearly forgotten. Caroline returned to her office, the next day feeling different, lighter, more human, and yet she carried the memory of the little girl with her in her heart. She realized that life was unpredictable, and sometimes the universe arranged moments to remind you of what truly mattered. The experience left her contemplating family and love, and she started thinking about changes she wanted to make in her life, and the little girl's presence was a catalyst for that change. She began reaching out to lost family connections and found ways to incorporate compassion into her business and her personal life. She never forgot the day she spent as a mother for a child she had just met, and the child never forgot Caroline either. Their bond was quiet, but enduring, a reminder that sometimes life gives you the chance to heal yourself while healing someone else. And as Caroline looked at the skyline, she no longer felt the emptiness she had once carried, because she understood that love, even in small doses, could transform the hardest hearts and create a connection that transcended circumstance.